Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head back to my motherland of Scotland once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel many times before. Now, these guys are a very well established and very well respected name within the Scottish craft beer scene, and if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they are very solid all round. They do some really nice lagers, I've had some great IPAs from them over the years, and they're also really outstanding when it comes to the bigger, bolder and more kind of malty styles of beer as well. So definitely one of the Scottish breweries that I would highly recommend that you check out should you get the chance. But the beer that we're going to have a look at from them today is one of their latest releases as of the time of filming, which is September 2025. It's a sub-style that I haven't tried from this brewery before, but one that I do really quite enjoy. So I'm quite curious to see how this brewery interprets this one. So yeah, needless to say, very, very curious to see what this one's going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, like I said, we are going back to the motherland of Scotland. We're going to head to the south of the country, to the Borders region, a little place called Galashiels, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Tempest Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Raisu. It comes in at 4.8% ABV, and this one is a Japanese rice lager. So yeah, this should be really quite interesting. I've had some really nice lagers from Tempest over the years. They have one at the moment called Graceland, which is a Pilsner that I'd be very curious to try, but the Modern Hellas is a lovely beer. You know, you could easily tan a few of those in a good session. I really do enjoy that one. But yeah, very first time I'm trying a Japanese rice lager from these guys, or a rice lager of any description as far as I can remember. So yeah, this should be quite interesting. This one kind of caught my eye out of the few Tempest ones that I saw back in the motherland of Scotland. We do actually get Tempest beer out here in Hong Kong. It's imported through Madhouse, but yeah, we don't really get the cans in the different shops and things like that. I would love to see that going forward, of course. But yeah, 4.8% Japanese rice lager from Tempest Brewing Company in Galashiels in the Borders in Scotland. Let's crack on with this one then and see what the beer is going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Tempest Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future, hopefully not too far in the near future, because I think it's about 2 years since I reviewed one of their beers. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Scottish playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to quite a bit at the moment because I did bring back a good few beers with me from the motherland. But do check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go into my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Tempest Brewery once again then. So, Tempest Brewery, or Tempest Brewing Company, was founded back in 2010 by husband and wife Gavin and Anika Meikle-John. So Anika is from New Zealand and she trained as a chef there, while Gavin is Scottish and also worked as a chef. But they apparently met while working together at Whistler Brewing Company in British Columbia over in Western Canada. But the couple returned to Scotland in 2007 to run the Cobbles Bar in Kelso, which is widely regarded as the second home of Tempest Brewing Company. So Gavin had apparently taken brewing courses in Sydney and Australia, and then he homebrewed in his garage while he was living in Wellington, New Zealand, using a small 50-litre brew kit. But Gavin was keen to take his brewing a bit more seriously when he got back to Scotland, and so together he and Anika officially founded Tempest back in 2010. They were joined for a number of years by Alan Rice, who was the business development manager. He had previously worked with Stewart Brewing up in Edinburgh, and he had also lived in New Zealand and Australia for a good period of time as well. But the brewery was originally housed in old dairy buildings in Kelso, and this brewery was largely kind of homemade and engineered to produce like really big flavoured beers on a very kind of small budget, but their beers proved to be very, very popular, and so they soon moved to a new bigger home at the Tweed Bank Industrial Estate in Galashiels. But in June of 2019 they submitted plans to build a new brewery building with a bar and restaurant on the site of the former Eldon Mill, which is very close to the Tweed Bank train station, but this move never really kind of materialised. I think, you know, COVID got in the way of that and other things with planning permission and so on. But later on, in autumn of 2024, they moved into a new, larger unit in the Tweed Bank Industrial Estate, which is very close to where their original place was, if I'm not mistaken, and it was previously home to the Barber Clothing Factory. But in there, they've installed a new 30 hectolitre brew kit, which has helped them expand their capacity quite significantly, and they also now have a larger tap room and kitchen, which opens Thursday to Sunday every week. Gavin is still involved in the brewing operations, but Anika is operating most of the hospitality side of the business, from what I understand. But as of September 2025, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 260 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd, and as I mentioned earlier, they do a wide variety of different styles. The Modern Hellas, if you want a nice fresh lager beer, that's always a good one to go for. But probably my two favourites from this brewery would be the Brave New World, the West Coast IPA, and also the Long White Cloud is a very good one, but the stronger version of it, the Longer White Cloud, I really do quite enjoy. But probably my favourite beer I've ever had from this brewery would be Old Parochial. That one is just an awesome Scotch ale. I've not seen that for quite some time actually, and I've noticed they're doing a few kind of lower ABV Scotch ales in their range now actually. But yeah, these guys are a very good brewery all round. Pretty much pick a style of beer from them that you will enjoy, and you'll get a very good interpretation of that style. That's my experience of them. But yeah, very well respected name in the Scottish beer scene, so check them out if you get the chance. But yeah, I think that's all we need to say on the subject of brewery history and things, so let's go on and actually have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one. I think it's really nice, you know, the neon lights and stuff, and you know, biru in Japanese. I've obviously got my connections to Japan with my little boy, but there you can see at the top of the can the Tempest Brewing Company symbol. It's a plain silver top on this can incidentally, and there's also the Tempest lightning bolt on the side of the can there as well. I don't think it's zooming in now. There you go, and it tells you a wee bit about the beer on the back there as well. So it says, meaning Raisu, meaning rice in Japanese. Usually it's han, is what you say for rice as well. And you know, they talk about asa gohan, hiro gohan, ban gohan, like breakfast, breakfast, lunch and dinner. They all have a bit of rice. That's kind of how it was. Breakfast rice, lunch rice, and evening rice, I guess you could say. So it's interesting they've gone for the more anglicised version of this one, but I suppose it would make sense, you know. But yeah, meaning rice in Japanese, Raisu is our take on the rice lager. Like anything that hails from the detail-centric zone of Japan, they're lagers that are made with next-level craftsmanship, and this is no different. Crafted with Pilsner malt, milled-riced, and a deft hand, Raisu is a super clean, super dry, crisp lager with subtle notes of citrus. So yeah, pretty interesting actually. I'm curious, I wonder if they have actually used Japanese sake rice in this one, because you know, Japanese rice, very high quality, and I can imagine it would be quite expensive to bring that across to Scotland from Japan, but there will be a number of importers doing it already. So yeah, it would be cool to know what rice variety they've used in this one. But yeah, as I say, 4.8% rice lager this, it should be really interesting. Let's get it out into the glass and see what we've got then. I'm really looking forward to this. So, let's have a look. Try and give it a wee bit more of an aggressive pour. Put it up to the bottom of our Yardley Y. There we are. That'll do for the moment to have a look at this thing. So, we've maybe poured about 60% of the beer out and into the glass, and it looks great. So yeah, so far with the 60% we've poured out, we've got just about a half finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head. If I bring it up to the camera there, you can see medium-sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid, a few fluffier ones going further up, and then yeah, the head on this one is just kind of fading away to be a thinner, more foamy layer. But yeah, you've got a lovely kind of pale golden straw colour to this one there. I think it's looking a bit richer to you guys on the camera there, but you can see, I think you guys will be able to see that. You can see there's little particles just floating around there, which I'm guessing will be part of the rice particles and things like that. But it looks absolutely great, this one, and this is kind of what you would expect from a rice lager, of course. Yeah, nothing really unusual about that, I have to say. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few different things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do, or any adjuncts you put into the beer, will affect the colour as well. But yeah, in this case, I don't think the rice is going to do too much to affect the colour of this one, other than maybe make it, yeah, maybe, I have to admit, yeah, some rice lagers I've seen are a little bit, are kind of a little bit paler, like this one is. But yeah, there's not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. It's pretty clear, other than the little particles floating around. But yeah, it does look very nice, this one. So yeah, nothing untoward about its appearance when you consider what style it is. So yeah, only other thing I would add at this juncture in the video would be that when it comes to lager beers, the technical definition of a lager is of course a beer that undergoes fermentation using bottom fermenting yeast, lower temperature fermentation, that's between 8 and 12 degrees Celsius. So yeah, rice lagers obviously fit into that category as well. But yeah, let's go on and have a little look at the aroma of this one then. I'm really quite curious about this. Oh yeah, okay. Now, it does actually smell quite similar to the likes of, you know, Sapporo or Ebisu or something like this, but obviously the ingredients that we used in this one will be a bit better quality than that. Although in fairness, when it comes to macro beers, the Japanese ones in terms of quality are a bit difficult to beat. They're, you know, they learned to brew from the Germans. So the quality of those, the Japanese brewed versions of the Japanese macro lagers are pretty damn good. But this one, yeah, it does kind of remind me of, you know, the Asahi, the Sapporo, the Ebisu, the Kirin and stuff like that you'll get in the Japanese izakayas. As I say, I'm over there quite a lot. But yeah, the aroma of this one is very nostalgic for me, I have to say that. And I will say as well, it's not doing anything unexpected. So let's just break that down and describe it for you more in depth. Yeah, so the backbone of this beer then, you can smell that fresh white bready bread crust in there. There's a little bit of woodiness to it, as you very often get, and quite a little bit of cracker. Touch of kind of wholemeal brown bread in there, fluffy white bread as well. It's like a kind of drier but fluffy and fresh white bread. You can smell the dryness of the Pilsner malt further back in the nose there as well, which is lovely. Yeah, slightly drier Pilsner malty character to it. And yeah, in the middle of the nose, there's definitely that wee bit of, like, you know, there's that McVitie's digestive biscuity kind of character as well. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together, I think, is very, very nice, but not unexpected in honesty. You can smell a little bit of the rice in this one, and I will say, you know, rice lagers and, you know, using rice in IPAs as well is quite an interesting thing. What I've always found it does is it gives you a slightly more oily kind of texture to the beer, and you can smell a little bit of the sweetness out of it. I love Japanese sake, incidentally, which is why I kind of learned so much about Japanese rice. But yeah, you can smell a little bit of the oiliness and the sweetness of the rice in there, but for me, the rice has a little bit of aromaticity to it and just a little touch of that kind of citrusy character. Yeah, so that for me is a really interesting kind of point to make about this beer, generally speaking. So yeah, I like that about this one for sure. So yeah, I don't know if we need to say anything more about the malty side of the beer. At the back of the nose, the yeasty side of things, I think is quite interesting. So for me, the yeasty character, it's got a little bit of dryness and cracker to it, which I think is due to the mix with the Pilsner malt, of course. But yeah, the yeasty character at the back of the nose is, again, quite a slightly sweeter white bready note. Yeah, so it's a slightly sweeter white bready note, and then so slightly sweeter white bready note, a more Pilsner malty type character as well to it, like a kind of crackery, biscuity, bready sort of thing, and then maybe a little bit more of a kind of bread crusty character too. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really nice on this one. So yeah, fluffy, fresh white bread, kind of Jacob's cream cracker and things like that, and a little bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit in there. So yeah, that covers the malty yeasty side of the beer. Let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. So yeah, again, this one's doing as you would expect. I'd be curious to know what hop they've used in this, in fact. But it comes across as being a little bit more, I think there could be a mix of like German and Czech hops in here, if I'm not mistaken. So the noble hops, of course, the Hallertau, the Tecknangs, the Žatec, or Sats as they're also known. You've got the Goldings, the Styrian Goldings from Slovenia as well, which I would also put in that category. The Czech ones tend to be a little bit more kind of spicy, if you like. The German ones tend to be a little bit smoother. Almost, so yeah, Czech ones are more floral and spicy, German ones are a bit more kind of smooth and grassy and things. And I think there's maybe a mixture of like Hallertau, Tecknang, and a little bit of Sats in here as well. So for me, the green component of this beer, there's a little slight bit of earthiness to it. You've got some lovely floral aromaticity as well, which I think is a little touch spicy, and then the grassiness is a little bit more zesty and quite smooth, I would say as well. So yeah, the way that it goes together in that regard, I think, is really quite nice. The green component, yeah, I think that plays a big role in this beer. But yeah, a little touch of smooth earthiness, maybe a little bit of woodiness as well, floral aromaticity, and that wee bit of grassy character too. So yeah, I like that with this one. In terms of the fruity side of things, then it's kind of what you would expect again. So for me, it's mostly like a kind of gooseberry type character that's coming out of it. Maybe a slight apricot, maybe a very slight hint of like oily pear, sultana, something like that, and maybe just a wee hint of a kind of lemon limey type character out of it too. So yeah, all in all, the aroma of this one is not the most bold, it's not the most complex, but it's just really quite nice actually. And with these rice lagers, I always like kind of trying to pick up some of the subtleties, and as I say, the rice for me has got a bit of sweetness to it, but a bit of floral character and a wee touch of kind of citrusy note as well. So all in all, the way that this one goes together, I think, is really nice. So yeah, let's have a look at this one then and see what it's all about. The Raisu Super Dry Lager, as they're calling it. A Japanese style rice lager from the wonderful Tempest Brewing Company in Galashiels in the Scottish borders. Let's do it. Slàinte, skål, cheers, kanpai. Ooh, okay. It is quite nice, that, I have to say. I'm going to say straight away, it is by no means the most complex beer that you're going to get from Tempest, but it's pretty damn nicely done. This is one of these beers where, if you're familiar with the sub-style, you'll really appreciate what's going on with this one. But for me, I'm one of those people, so yeah, I think this is pretty damn good actually. Thumbs up to Tempest once again. I will say, it is a wee bit different from other beers I've had in this style category too, because it's, you know, the Scottish water, we're very proud of our tap water, and of course brewing water is slightly different to that, but still, you can just feel that the cleanliness in this one, it feels a wee bit different just because of the makeup of the water. And Scottish water, I think, is very clean but also kind of slick in a way, so you can feel this beer is like that, and probably the variety of rice that they're using is amplifying that a little bit. So for me, it's not the driest of rice lagers that I've come across. It's not the crispest, but it is really quite nice. And I think, yeah, that's water quality and potentially the type of rice that they've used here. Yamada Nishiki is one that's quite a popular Japanese sake rice. In fact, one of the best ones. So I'm wondering if they have used that, or what variety they've actually used in this beer. But yeah, you take a slightly bigger gulp of it as well, you will get that kind of impact crispness and dryness. You'll get that impact crispness and dryness out of it, and yeah, then it just smoothens out and kind of sweetens up a little bit. I think that's a fair thing to say about this beer. But it gives you everything you want from the style. You've got the floral character, the nice maltiness, and a wee bit of fruitiness. So let's just break it down and describe it for you that wee bit more in depth. So middle third of your palate then. The backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely, fresh, white bready, bread crusty backbone in there. As you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little touch of woodiness just further forward. And that lingers there into the aftertaste. It does kind of sit there, but then above that you've got a wee touch of kind of Jacob's cream cracker and things coming out of this beer too. So I love that little bit of Jacob's cream cracker that's in this beer. So the Jacob's cream cracker in this one I really do quite enjoy. That sits there, and then above that I do want to say there's a little touch of like a wholemeal brown bready kind of character there, particularly as your palate adjusts to the beer and you start to get more of the sweetness out of it. So you've got that wholemeal brown bready layer coming out of this one. Then there's a fluffy fresh white bready character coming out of it as well. And then next up you can feel the kind of pilsner malt. So as I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. But there's definitely a wee bit of a kind of more crisp pilsner malty character on the back half of that middle third of your palate, and it's a bit smoother going further forward. In the centre of your palate though, you can feel like a little oily circle there, and the base of that oily circle is a little bit more like a kind of oily ricey type character. So that nice oily ricey character that comes out of this one is the nice oily ricey character in this one I think is great. So lovely oily ricey character in there, and then the riciness in this one, for me it is quite sweet, but into the aftertaste I think it's got a little bit of an aromatic kind of quality to it, and you do get a wee bit of a slightly sweet kind of gooseberry-ish kind of note out of it. Very slightly melon maybe, don't know. But on top of that ricey character, in the dead centre of the palate you get that little circle there, which is the kind of concentrated McVitie's digestive biscuit oil type flavour, and that's the booziness out of the beer. And then you get a wee mix of like McVitie's digestive biscuit and the more aromatic elements of the rice just pushing their way out there into the aftertaste. So that middle third of your palate in this beer I think is very, very nice. So that's the middle third of your tongue in this one. So going further back on the palate, on that border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of kind of bready build up in there, the wee touch of brown bread in the base, the fluffier barley malt white bread in the middle, then the more pilsner malty crispness on top of that. As I've often said, back third of your palate is going to give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, but just at different intensities. But the base of that back third of your palate, fresh white bready bread crust in there, Jacob's cream cracker, the brown bready character just sitting above that fluffy fresh white bread in there, brown bread in there, the brown bready layer above that you can see the same of, it's just a little bit lighter and more kind of crisp in a sense, and then creeping over the top of that you've got a bit more of the you've got a little bit more of the kind of pilsner malty kind of crispness in there, and above everything else you've got the yeasty side of the beer. So let's have a little look at the yeastiness in this one then. So for me, the yeasty side of this beer is quite nice as well. At its core, it feels like a slightly sweeter wholemeal brown bread. It's surrounded by a more kind of sweet, oily white bread, and then the very edge of it is like a fluffier white bready sort of thing. So kind of white bready bread crust definitely. So that slight dryness from the yeast and the pilsner malt, that lingers into the aftertaste, but the oiliness from the rice gives you a wee bit of sweetness to balance it out, in fact. So definitely back third of your palate the flavour is taller, then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate it just kind of compresses down and squashes together that little bit more. So I think that covers the malty and yeasty side of the beer. On the hoppy side of things, In the back corners of the palate, you've got that nice little bit of you've got that nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it's a little touch woody, maybe very slightly herbal, and then as you push further forward towards the front corners of your palate, it's absolutely got a little bit more floral aromaticity, slight touch of spiciness to it, but not too much. I'm kind of doubting what I said earlier on about the Czech Zats hops earlier on, but yeah, round the front curve of your tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more kind of grassy, but there's a wee bit of zestiness to it. I'm wanting to say there's maybe a little bit of Pearl or Hercules or something like that in this one. It feels a bit more German the more that I drink of it, but a slightly higher alpha acid German character to this one. So the way that all of that goes together, I think, is quite nice. So let's focus on the front third of your palate then. Border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there, kind of brown bread in the base, the kind of white bread in the top, then the Pilsner malty character above that. The base of the front third of your palate again, white bready bread crust, Jacob's cream cracker, wholemeal brown bread, white bread, Pilsner malty character just kind of creeping over that. Then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll the way out of the beer. So let's have a wee look at that. So yeah, fruity side of this beer for me is kind of, what you would expect in all honesty. It has at the back of that front third of your palate, it's got a little bit of, it has got a little bit of, I don't want to say grapefruit, it's not quite pungent enough, but at the back of that front third of your palate, on the back of the oily bubble, there's definitely a slightly stronger citrusy note there. But yeah, as you go further forward from that, it's definitely got a little bit more of you get a little bit of like a oily pear in the back half of that front third of your palate, so there's definitely that in there. Some nice dry apricot-y notes in there, and then further forward, there's a little bit of, there's definitely a wee bit of a more kind of limey sort of note to it. So yeah, I think a little bit of pear, a little bit of maybe sultana or something, dry or apricot, and a wee bit of lime. Maybe a little touch of gooseberry as well. Let's just take another look at that. Yeah, I want to say, there's a little touch of gooseberry, especially in the beginning. And I think the front half of the front third of your palate, there's more of the oily gooseberry there than lime, just behind the front tip of your tongue. But yeah, on the back half, it's apricot in the dead centre, then more kind of sultana, slightly peary type note in there. Maybe a wee hint of like fresh green apple to this one as well. So these fruity elements are all things that you would kind of expect of this style, and to an extent a Pilsner generally, but apart from the gooseberry I'd say is more exclusive, if you like, to the rice lager sub-style. But all in all, really, really nice beer, this one. Not quite as dry as I was expecting to be, especially from the kind of market, the sort of thing on the front here, the super dry lager, if you like. It's not quite as dry as that, but I think that's the Scottish water that's doing it, and potentially the rice sort of oiling it up. But otherwise, I think it's a very, very nice beer, this one. I would enjoy to drink a few of these in a session if I still really did that. I only drink 1 or 2 beers, I don't really have sessions anymore, if you like. But I think Tempest have done a really damn nice job of this, and I wouldn't expect any less from them, to be honest. So I think that concludes what we need to say about the flavour of this one. Mouthfeel wise, for me, this beer, it's kind of mid-range, light-bodied. The carbonation's very smooth in this one. Like I said, it's got a bit of dryness and crispness in the beginning, but I think the further along you go with this beer, it really smoothens out and sweetens up and just slickens up, if we can say that as well. It's got a wee bit of an oily slickness to it. In terms of the hoppy side of the beer, for me, it's got more of a... it's got a little bit more of a bitterness to it into the aftertaste. So I want to say this is probably about 20-ish IBUs, maybe 25 at the most. You do get a little bit of floral spice out of it, like I said. The malty side of this one's a wee bit drier and more crisp underneath, smoother in the middle, slightly sweeter on top. And then you've got a lovely sort of just oily, kind of dry fruitiness coming out of the beer into the aftertaste. But all in all, nothing surprising from this beer when you consider what style it is, but I think it is really quite nicely done. So thumbs up to Tempest Brewing Company once again, one of the lighter and more drinkable offerings. I hope they do this beer again at some point actually, because it's pretty solid within that category, and not a lot of Scottish breweries are doing these Japanese rice lagers. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This one was the Raisu, a 4.8% Japanese rice lager from the wonderful Tempest Brewing Company in Galashiels in the Scottish Borders region in my motherland of Scotland. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Tempest Brewing Company as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until the next time, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out Tempest Brewing Company's social media, and I'll catch you guys on another review very, very shortly. Ciao just now.